It's time. I'm back. I'm so I guess. What? Oh my god.
Arcade machines, remember those? I sure didn't. I know you expect me to say that I do, but that isn't the case. Growing up in Sweden, arcade machines wasn't something everyone had access to, but of course a few places exist that I can easily get to where arcade machines are. I think a lot of us has seen some gameplay or perhaps has even touched the levers on them. But as technology have advanced along with home console users, arcade games have made it to homes across the world. But of course, it's nowhere near as popular in recent times like it used to be. But home console ports has always been a thing, ever since the 16-bit era of the Super Nintendo days like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 2. But as time have passed by, arcade machines and home consoles don't simply pair much anymore. Online gaming is more popular, but of course the game design of modern games is kinda like the ones in the arcades. Simple fun with not much complicated controls. But let's go back to a time period when home console ports were a selling point, with the biggest name being Sega, well, at least in the mid-90s. They really meant business with that mindset. With technology advancing at the time, it really seemed like games was going to take a massive leap into the third dimension. People really like talking about Crash Bandicoot and Mario 64 when talking about early 3D, but even before then, they were 3D games. In the arcades, the potential was seen and even tested successfully in Virtua Fighter 1993 and Daytona USA from 1994. Both were very early, but they showed off what would work in the future, that being polygons. But of course, with them being first, they don't look the best these days. Neither actually, although one of them has aged a little better. That one being Daytona USA, the only home console port around. And with the popularity of the Sega Saturn, almost no one had ever played it, except for me. And, well, a few more I guess. With the console turned on, we get the familiar animated Sega Saturn intro and art logo, animated boot up screens. The logo shows up and so does the title screen. A few seconds later, without touching a button on the controller, a demo screen shows up, displaying everything this game has to offer. That being racing, and even more racing. Thankfully, the main function of the arcade function is removed. That you need to insert quarters into the console, giving you a few more tracks or minutes of gameplay before you have to go home and cry in the corner. Since this came out around the same time as Namco's Ridge Racer, it is obviously compared to it, and it also said this game being a great alternative to the other. Do I think so myself? Yes, you get to pick a car but no driver sadly. Only two options to go for, manual and automatic. I go for automatic because freak out with manual, I'll leave that to IKEA. Then you have to pick a track with 3 difficulties represented by 3 different tracks. Surprising to see, since other racing games add an extra track to just one course. You hear a rolling start at the beginning of every race, whether you like it or not. Now the race is on, with all of the races competing for the ultimate victory of something, I guess. Cake? Yeah, let's go with that. The first thing I've noticed are the graphics, which are pretty impressive for the time. Yeah, sure, there are lots of popping, but that's expected for the early 3D era, at least on consoles. But when you take in what's being present, with all 4 races at once and the music which never falters, I cannot say it didn't amaze some players at the time. There are lots of details on every car, the sound design is nice, with lots of screeching on the track. This music has a very arcadey feel to it. Yeah, that's about it. I was going to fully explain all of that within a short time, and that's for one reason: simplicity, both a good and a bad thing. On paper, the controls are simple, but in execution, not so much. With the number of buttons on the controller, there are some strange choices of placements for commands. For you see, the C button is confirmation, not A or start. Start takes you back to the previous screen. Why? And during the race, the A button does absolutely nothing. It's a mess. Just explaining it is odd. It's a minor thing since practice makes perfect, just odd for a first time player. Despite the fact arcade games should be a few quick minutes before doing something, it is still a challenge understanding how you are supposed to think while racing, as steering while speeding up can be a challenge to grasp. I crashed several times and didn't give a great performance in the process. Slowing down in the curves doesn't even work in the long run. You have to actually know how to play this game. It is a learning curve. Just imagine what it was like in the arcade. How disappointed you would be if you didn't succeed within 10 tries. Maybe it was different in the arcade, but given how the mentality was, it could have been equally as difficult. The biggest challenge comes in the form of the timer. It is tight, and you have to be on top of your game if you actually want to finish. I didn't even finish in time, and I'm ending up at 29th place. I tried. The other courses are different in other ways. On the second course there are fewer cars, that being 20. This course is nowhere near as easy as it seems. It is wider, but it is even harder. There's a weird word I've heard called turning hard. Later tracks, despite having fewer laps and cars, makes no reason to think it's easy. As the difficulty says, I can hardly be in a medium position when they all speed ahead of me. The road is wider, but you don't get to use that to your advantage. To its credit, it really seems like to spend a few minutes to win isn't going to cut it. I didn't even make to the final lap on the 2 remaining tracks. That's pretty cool. It sounds like I've been whining throughout this game, and to be fair, I am looking from a first-time player's perspective. Looking from an experienced perspective, I will give it credit for its skillful gameplay. While being a decent port of an arcade classic, it really baffles me whom it really was meant to appeal to at the time. Arcade racing fans, Sega fans. What? It was a few quarters in the arcade. If you had access to a machine, why not play that? There was Ridge Racer amongst others. $30 for this? Why? But that was at the time. Is it worth to play Daytona Usa today? It all depends on you. If you're able to afford Sega Saturn and arcade races, then by all means.
But the PlayStation was not available and affordable, so my advice to you, make wise choices.
Well, yes, this is it. We had great times together. All of us united in the name of reviewing games. Well, I guess that's it. This is the last time I'll lock this door and step into a new generation of reviews.